I'm Kate Dorey. Welcome to Fun, Fierce Freedom, how to build the self-confidence you need to win in every area of your life. I'm so happy that you're here today, and I am super excited to be talking to Dianne Bischoff James. Hey, Dianne, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks. How are you doing?
I am fantastic, and this is a super fun Friday for both of us. Woohoo!
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
right? Yeah, yay!
Yeah.
All right. So, I would love to get started with you sharing a little bit about the work that you do and how you got started really doing that.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, I'm a life reboot expert. I have changed almost everything about my life over the last probably about 15 years now. Everything from losing 60 pounds and keeping it off, changing careers, changed relationships, changed location of where I live, and you
Okay, we're
name
just
it,
going to
I've
call
done
you
it.
like the goddess of change.
I thank you for that. Hey, thank you. I was
Yes,
going to say the queen of it, but that sounds kind of weird. So, but I appreciate that.
yeah,
Thank
the
you.
goddess, the goddess.
Yeah, the goddess, because everything that people have to go through that are big, major milestones in their life, I've not only had to do it, but I've had to do it in spades. So the one
Mm.
thing that occurred to me going through this process is that there was no rules, there was no guidebook, there's no one anywhere really that puts it all together for how to make change possible, how to make change easy, and how to make change actually do it with grace so that there's an positivity to it. And so that's what I specialize in. And I've been had the good fortune of touring the country and sharing this message with everyone in a book called The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. And so that's what I've been up to.
I would love to talk about change a little bit more because that's something that a lot of folks they freak out about. Like they just straight up they don't like it. Like people, I mean, having been a therapist for many years, I often hear people be like, I hate change. I don't handle change well. And so I love what you said about I make change easy. And that really stood out to me because I feel like change doesn't have to be as difficult as we often experience it as. And so I'm wondering how you've made it easy.
Well, part of it is you go back to like that old saying, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I think a lot of it is really taking accountability for where you are and where you want to be. And what really occurred to me, and this was one of the major milestones, is I didn't want to live an unlived life.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
Knew, I just knew that I was doing that. You know, I had a career, but I basically was miserable. I was 190 pounds. I was sucking down, Prozac every day so that I could get out of bed and keep functioning. 3 kids, the high rent district, the mini mansion, all the stuff that you're supposed to get.
All the things that you think will make you happy, and yet you're so freaking miserable inside.
It's
That whole
amazing. It's
deal.
amazing.
Yeah.
You can pile up all the goods all you want, but it does not make you happy on the inside. And
Mm-mm.
I was just living proof of that. So, but if you go to a doctor and you say, "Oh, I'm so unhappy, I
They
can't
just
get
put
up,"
you on
yep,
antidepressants.
they write you a prescription.
I know. It's
I'm like, that's
crazy.
going to fix anything. Well, it didn't fix anything for me. Not that I don't give any advice on that. People can do whatever they need to do to be healthy. But for me, once I found that inner bliss and I actually started to get on the path of change, all of it felt better. Everything felt happier. And that's really how I lost 30 pounds, just by, I broke free into going into acting when I was over 40 years old. I was overweight and I showed up anyway. And it was so much fun and it felt so right. And to have, the lights on and have the costumes on and boots and petticoats and the whole thing, that dancing on stage for a couple months just helped me get one step towards living towards that lived life, the part I wanted to really do. And that was just the first step. Everything after that has been just a series. But to really get to your question, I love your question about how to make change easy. I'll be honest with you, it's easy if you stop the resistance aspect to it.
I'm
You
sorry. I
know,
just was like, oh yes, that booger that
yeah,
we
that
all
little thing
that
about like,
little
no,
thing
no, no,
where
no,
we're
no,
yeah. Yeah, you mean that giant thing that we all
yeah.
struggle with? Totally,
And
yeah.
so, and I'm sure as a therapist, you find this all the time. People are like, "Oh, I hate my job. I'm miserable with what I'm doing." And so I had this one woman come to me because I've traveled all over and talked to a lot of people about empowerment and about transformation.
Yeah.
And she said, "Okay, I'm in this job and it's I hated it. I was miserable every day. I was running out the door. I was producing as much work as I could, and they were still unhappy. I had a bad boss, all the stuff, right? And she said, and then one day they walk in and they fire me. And she goes, and then I went home and I was depressed and miserable. And I said, why aren't you celebrating?
Right? That my initial thought when you said that was like, well, thank goodness.
I know, exactly. So I said, I'm celebrating you. I'm celebrating you in this huge shift. And she said, but they fired me. I'm like, thank goodness they fired you, because you were so unhappy that, of course, we're manifesting everything from the inside out.
Yeah.
And once she did that, we clarified what she really wanted, which was part of her aspect of change. And she really wanted to go into hippotherapy, which I'm sure you know is like using animals and trying to coach children, coach adults using animals and using horses, in particular equine therapy in a way. And
That's
so,
awesome.
so she went back to school for it and realized the best thing ever happened to her was that she got fired, of course. And she went on to study it. And it's a popular field, and it's a well-paying field, and she loves it. So, going into it's almost like that first aspect of it, those first few steps that are the most uncomfortable.
Yeah,
And we almost always and when you turn around and look back at it, almost all of us can say, oh yeah, I figured out why that boss was that way, or what that relationship reflected back to me.
Yeah.
And so it's just getting through that initial discomfort and just really embracing it, putting your arms around it. And I always say, put your arms around your job right now, because you do have what most people want, which is it's giving you something. It's giving you security, and it's giving you financial support. So always put your arms and give it a big hug, even if it's not the right job.
Doesn't matter.
You can embrace what you have now, and that gives you that freedom to say, okay, it's good now, but then what do I need to do?
Right, because I want something more, something better. And like, that's okay, but like, let's not forget to be thankful for what we do have.
Exactly, because you cannot create from lack.
No, you can't. So I love what you're saying, because really what you're talking about is like, you just kind of outlined some clear steps to handle resistance. So really to turn around and embrace it, and to recognize that there are things that are showing up and that we get to learn. Because like when you were talking about your client who was really miserable and is now like doing sorry, my nose is super itchy, it's just my intuition going off. It's cool. Is now like doing exactly what she wants. Like I really connected with that, and I'm sure other folks are connecting with that. Like I connected with that because there was a moment in my life that I had a really bad breakup, and I like literally was so thankful that happened. Like not at the time, like mind you, not at the time. At the time I was not, but when you look back, you can see it. So how often do we resist change? And do we just need to switch our view, switch our attitude, switch our filter, so that we can recognize that there's really good coming out of this?
Right. And also there's another key point to recognize. Most of us take the aspects of change, especially what you brought up with in relationships. They say that's the closest thing to death in our lifetime. To end a relationship, really, even if it's short term or long term, we have a kind of an innate association with that ending, that break. So a lot of it is to really become keenly aware that you're going through the steps of death and dying. You're going through the grief and and I don't know if I can remember them all right now, but the grief, and then you bargain, and then you're angry, and then finally you come to
there's some depression up in there.
Yeah, there's some depression, and then you come to acceptance. So I like to call out where I'm at.
I love that.
It's really fearful sometimes to make a big change. It's kind of scary even to look for a new job, but the upside of doing those, and this is the part I wanted to talk about for a second, is taking 100% responsibility for what can I do today? And I say this to myself all the time, because I'm writing a second book and I have a third book that's coming through right now. And I'll say, what can I do today to apply myself for even 15 minutes? I usually do a lot longer than that. I try to, but what did I do to take one step forward towards my next goal? And I hold myself accountable for that. So even if it's one task, and sometimes the tasks are like boring or scary or whatever it is, I usually make myself sit down and say, it's one step towards my goal. And it could be short amount of time. So I take the little egg timer sometimes just on my desk. So I give myself that accountability to the egg timer, because if the egg timer hits the bottom, I can stop.
Yeah.
I don't though, because you've overcome the resistance.
Yeah.
gave yourself a little goal and a little reward. And most of the time at the end of that egg timer, I'll continue on for another half hour,
Mhm.
or I'll, you know how sometimes we just have to put names in a list, and that's
Yeah.
something that's kind of, it doesn't have a positive, sometimes I don't resonate with that. I have to put something on to keep myself occupied. So I give myself the reward on the other side of that. So if I'm doing
Mhm.
something that's kind of, I don't care for, that's kind of rote, I put on a YouTube video. I know we were talking about YouTube
I
earlier.
know, it's so funny.
You can put on,
Yeah.
I can listen while I'm doing this task, and all of a sudden the time flies.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really, so like, first I want to start with, I think it's fascinating that you just likened a relationship to a death, because I have done that in my work for many years in terms of describing that, like, it is a death. And like, that's often like when you tell that to another person, it's like something just clicks for them where they're like, oh my gosh, no wonder I'm doing so badly. And it's like, yeah, it's okay. It's like, let's
Right.
be gentle with ourselves. So I love that you went there. And then I love what you talked about with like the egg timer. So sometimes when you are experiencing resistance, like, you do just put a timer on. I tell that with like to so many of my clients where I'm like, just go ahead and sit down and do this for like 20 minutes and then you're done. And like,
Yeah,
what are you going to do? Like, and then I want you to, like, I often will have them celebrate their doneness with it. Like
exactly.
that, oh my gosh, I just put 20 minutes on the clock, and like, way to go me. So like, I love what you're talking about with like, let's take responsibility, because everything that's showing up in our life is showing up for a reason. I know that that is not easy for people to hear. In fact, I know sometimes, Dianne, that I myself don't find that easy to hear. And yet I know it's the truth. I am responsible for everything that is occurring within my life. If the results are not what I want, what do I get to tweak or change?
Exactly.
So that doesn't downplay emotions. We all are going to have emotions about things. Allow yourself to feel them and feel through them, and then go into the solution.
Right.
Look at like what you can do differently, instead of like, because so often when people are really unhappy in something, they feel really stuck, and they're like, this isn't working, and this isn't working, and this isn't working, and I'm miserable, and I can't get this job, and nobody will hire me. And it's just like this whole spiral of poop. It's just like a,
Right.
yeah, like, I mean, do you know what I mean?
I
You're like,
love it.
nah.
The
Yeah,
spiral of poop.
yeah,
Yeah, no, but it is, because that's what leads to overwhelm.
yes,
And that's when you freeze.
yes,
So yeah, and so I think everything you're saying, I completely agree with at 100%. And the other thing that's always interesting to me, oh, I'm sorry for,
no worries. I really like your phone ring though. That
so
sounds wonderful.
yeah,
Speaking of
turn off
timers,
the cell
just
phone.
kidding.
So the other thing that's really interesting too is I always look at, and I call it the procrast, because I like to give it a name.
Mm.
I could be the goddess of change, but I can definitely be the queen of procrastination sometimes. Now, not always, and it's usually something that I know I don't like to do, but I call myself out on it. And I'll say, this is the biggest procrast ever, you know. You know how it is.
Yeah.
You'd rather do the dishes, you'd rather, you know, pick that little spot up off the floor, or organize something that you've had on your desk for like 2 years, instead of doing the
Mhm.
most important thing.
I know, isn't it the
So
weirdest thing when we do that? I do that sometimes, and I'm like, why am I doing this right now? Like, I don't think that the bathroom needs to be cleaned in this exact moment.
but it's the path of least resistance, because
Yeah.
that's less awful than really confronting the one
Yeah.
thing that you don't exactly want to do. So I always try to bring it up and say, I give it a name, you know, so I externalize it, like, okay, you're doing the procrast thing. And then I'll
Mm.
say, you know what, let's sit in the uncomfortable spot for a minute. Because a lot of times for me, writing, although writing is always coming through in my ideas, somehow I still have a little resistance when it comes to put my fingers on
To
the,
actually sitting down. Yeah.
yeah, that's, I
Totally.
think it must be
I
for
have the
most
same
writers.
thing. Do you know what I sometimes do? Just a
But
handy, like, I sometimes will just call my brother, we'll talk it through, and I'll record it. And then, like, you can
that's
translate
great.
recorded things. So it's like so amazing. There's like this app that you can use to translate whatever's like on video
Oh my
or
God, then all your brilliance gets written down. Oh my
yes, I
gosh.
know. And then you're like, I don't have to do it anymore, which is so, I'm the same way. I literally, every time it comes to creating a webinar, I know none of my audience knows this, but I find webinars to be excruciating to write.
I
I don't know why. So funny,
and
right?
there's some deep fear. We all know this.
Yeah, totally.
There's some, because my background's in psych too. So there's
Yeah.
always some little kernel. And this is what I try to address too with myself. Okay, well, the kernel is that if I write something, it's going to be poop, you know, or somebody
Yeah.
won't like it, or there'll be a judgment on it. I don't know what it is. But when I can recognize that none of that matters in the moment. What matters is that I just put my finger on the keys for the time that I set. And then strangely, it's like I get plugged in, like
And
someone
then
goes,
you're in
"Ah," and then all of
flow.
a sudden it's like, it's because I
Yeah.
actually, everything channels through my hands really quickly. As long as I plug in, it can
Mhm.
go on. I'll be there for 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours. And what came out was amazing. It was dying to come out. And then I'm like, oh, that wasn't so hard
Isn't it
until I have
funny?
to plug in again. I don't know
Right.
what it is. I don't know what it is about that like action of getting plugged into the divine or whatever that source is that's so powerful that feels resistant to me. But anyway, so I call it all out on the whole thing and say, all right. And there's one more tip, one more great
Mm.
tip. It's shocking and amazing how much time you will have in your life when you turn off the television set.
I know, right?
You
So
get like half a
true.
day back.
I know, it's amazing. A week, a whole week.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, over a couple days, you probably you can get rested. You can do things that you have on your list. It's a strange. So again, the same thing with the timer. When the show ends, get up and walk away because it does have a hypnotic effect, as we all know. Once you start watching, I do the zombie like,
Yeah, and then Netflix
I'll
just
just
auto plays at this point.
I will just
Genius
stand there. My
invention.
kids are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, it consumes me. I can
Yeah.
feel myself going into that once again, and so I'll be like, get up and leave. And so I make sure that I don't watch a lot of TV anymore. I do, certain shows are fun, that's great, but not more than like an hour max, because then I get 3 more hours to
I
do
know,
something,
it's crazy.
read,
Yeah,
laugh, whatever makes you feel good in the moment. And I'm finding that I have double the time in my week.
because you're not, yeah.
Because
I'm just a random Netflix binger. So like it's always like I like literally went like 3, maybe 4 months without watching any TV. I had so much time on my hands. It was amazing. So like
isn't it? So
yeah, and
it's almost to us like, it's a soft addiction, as
yeah,
they say. And so just be aware of it. You don't have
yeah.
to stop anything cold turkey. But
No.
I came up with these 14 shortcuts for happy living, and that's one of the things that you need to do in the 14
Mhm.
shortcuts. You have to balance and leverage your alignment, which is mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. And a lot of the things that we feel overwhelmed by is often one of those quadrants. It could be often 1, 2, 3, and sometimes all 4 quadrants. And then you have someone who feels completely overwhelmed. But for example, let's say you're just off on your emotional quadrant, and that you don't feel supported, you don't feel loved, you don't feel like you're getting any type of the emotional nourishment that you're looking for. It comes out in different ways. That's something where, imagine now you get 4 hours back on your day. What would it take to feel more emotionally nourished? Even if
Mm.
you give it to yourself, doesn't have to come from other people. It could be, for me, it's the bath. You do the bath, I do the bath and the candles, and I'm floating in this just sea of joy. I don't know what it is, but I
But
feel
it's
like the
so
body relaxes, the
relaxing.
mind relaxes. I meditate, I do
I
all
love
the
that.
all the yumminess comes back. So that takes care of an emotional need. So you look at all the 4 quadrants. What are you doing on the physical? Physical a lot is about your job and your work and how you're employing yourself. And when on this physical plane, that's how we're spending 8 to 10 hours a day
Yeah, that's a
invest
large chunk of time.
most of your time.
Yeah, it
And
really is.
most people in this country in particular are miserable while they're doing that. They say this is the country with the most unhappy workforce anywhere. And so if that's your 8 to 10 hours of your day and your physical work is leaving you at like a 2 because you don't love it, then it's time to do something different. It's time to actually look at
Yeah.
what it would take to make a step in the right direction. Even as a hobby, I did the acting as a hobby at first, and then I did it professionally. But at first, it was so much fun as a hobby that it just didn't matter. It made me skip down the hallway to my horrible job because I got
Yeah,
to
because
stay.
you were just so happy. This reminds me of like, let's have more fun in life. Like, how often are we like doing something like consume 8 to 10 hours a day and something we're miserable? What are you going to do to add fun in? Because like, you need to have fun. Like,
Absolutely.
life is meant to be enjoyed. And like, if you're not experiencing enjoyment, what do you need to change? So like, I love that acting did that for you. Also, I totally resonate with being on a stage. Like, it's just fun.
It's
Uh,
just pure fun.
it's
If you
just
like
fun.
that. If you like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I
There's some
happen to like it. I'm about to actually take an improv class tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, good
Yeah,
for you.
I'm super excited. I've done it before and it was awesome, but it's been like months. So I'm like really stoked. So
That's so good. That's terrifying for most people. So congratulations.
I
That's
think
I'm,
it's
I'm
fun.
better
It's
with a
all
script.
game. It's all games and like and I love being like on the spot.
Yeah,
Because then
and that's
you're
also
not,
really good. Yeah,
yeah.
it's that's very good. I call, the love it living aspect of life, because it also, you can bring that. All the acting techniques are really good at making you present in the moment. And so that's a great reminder, because when you're improving, you just respond, whatever it is, you don't hold back. And so that's really more like when you were a child.
Hmm.
That's all improv is. You know how little
Yeah.
kids go down the street and they can't walk straight? They
And
walk
they're
like
singing a song about
they're
whatever.
singing a song and they're jumping on one square and
Yeah.
they jump to another square. I mean, that's the way they want to walk. So we're taught to, like, no,
No, what if
pay
other
attention.
people are looking and we don't
Yeah,
look perfect and we don't have all of our stuff together? I know, like,
exactly. Don't get in anybody's way. Well,
yeah,
no, they should get in somebody's way. They're having so much fun that
yeah.
it's just fun to even watch them.
I know they are like just such a great reminder for all of us adults of like what our real essences are and like how can we get back to that, because when you are skipping through life, or even if you're like it's raining and you're jumping in some puddles, like life is fun that way, and you don't have to stay in feeling unhappy. There's like wonderful things there to open you up, and you just have to like decide that you're worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And everybody's worth it. You're
Yeah,
worth it. I'm
yeah,
worth it. Everybody is worth
yeah.
it.
Bottom
So
line, everyone is worth
yeah.
it. Like,
So
yeah.
finding those couple things, and that's one of the things when you're one of the 14 shortcuts is about loving your life, and that
Mhm.
means that every day you should be able to say for a minimum of 1 hour that you did something that you love to do. So for me today, this is what I love to do. I love talking to you. I love having these conversations. I like breaking free. I like helping others break free. So
Yeah.
whatever that is, whatever gave you that one moment where you could really put that label on, I love this, then you're doing it right. And
It's so
once you
funny
do
you
it
said
a
that.
little bit every day, it becomes part of who you are,
Yeah.
instead of just something you do occasionally, or even if some people just like, I wait till the summer because in the summer I get out. I'm like, but
Well,
you're here
what about the
now.
other 9 months of the year? Like, what happened
Especially when
then?
it's
Yeah,
gone.
like, yeah, and like, I'm with you. Like, I love doing these interviews. I actually really love being active too. Like, so moving my body in some way, shape, or form feels really good to me. And so I agree with you. Like, at minimum, 1 hour, one
Minimum.
hour, and
And
like,
some people don't even do 5 minutes.
I know some people don't do anything,
Yeah,
and then you wonder why you're not feeling good, why you're not happy, and it's like you're not. There's no joy coming in.
exactly.
And even like so like I often teach like morning routines. I think that that's a really great grounded way to start your day off, even if it's holding your cup of coffee for a couple of minutes and just allowing yourself to smell that in. Like there are so many things like wouldn't you agree, Diane? They don't have to
Oh,
be over the
absolutely.
top extravagant. Like they can be simple pleasure.
Oh, totally. So I'll just give you an example. The one thing that I had this job I was doing and I didn't like it very much, but I'm trying to be responsible, take care of my kids. I got one in college, one coming into college. So that's, $65,000 a year to pay for on top of your regular life. So the one thing that I did to go to this horrible job, which it was, is I pour tea in the morning and I put it in my little canister, and I
Mhm.
have this really pretty little one, and I make just the right temperature. And for some reason, sipping that in
Mhm.
with the music that I love in the morning as I would drive in traffic for like 45 to 50 minutes gave me a feeling of I
I
can do
can do
this.
it.
I can do this. And you know what? I looked forward to that silly canister of hot tea because it was so yummy. I call it the yummies, but it's yummy on the inside. And those kind of simple rituals, which I love to do and help other people discover about themselves. We all came with a package that was pretty well set when we're really young. We
Yeah.
just get away from it. And when
Yeah.
we get back to the things that give us the love at living, the rituals, the joys, the exercises, whatever makes us that you as an individual sing, that's when you know you're working. But by the way, when you sing, you can't be unhappy and sing.
No,
I know
you
it sounds
can't.
like
You know,
you
it's so
can't.
funny. We were talking about like how kids do that. Whenever I'm in such a good mood, I'll start singing stuff like, and I feel badly for the people I live with. Like my
But
boyfriend and I do,
people
but
will
I'm
smile because they
picking
know
up like
you're.
little
You're
bitty.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Cause it's like, that's always a really good signal that like, wow, I'm vibing really high, because then I'll just start singing and I'm like, wow, I'm making up little songs here and there. So I love that. And I love that you're
Yeah.
talking about like, I'm going to bring in the word rituals. It's these rituals that we can practice that can really improve our moods and how we're feeling, and like open our heart up. So like there's something about not just the tea, but the tea in that canister. And
Right.
that
And
this
the
is,
music. Yeah.
yeah, and the music, and that this is something for you. So that
Yeah.
even in difficult and hard times, we can find ways to tap into things that connect us back to our true essence of joy.
Yeah. And I had one client who was amazing, and she came to me and we were working together for just transformation for her overall. And she'd said the one thing she loved to do was knit. And
Mm.
she was so talented at the things that she would create, and blankets and things I could never even imagine doing. And she said that a friend had said to her several years ago, "Why are you doing something like that? You're wasting your time. You should be
Mm.
doing something more productive." And I looked at her, I said, "But you love it, right?" And she goes, "Oh, more than anything, I could create things that are just art pieces with what I create." And I said to her, "Why would you think that that's a waste of time?" It was a silly message that got in her head that someone had stopped a ritual that was empowering and fulfilling to her. She got right back into it and started creating an entire collection. And I said, next thing you got to do is you just got to get this out and share it, whether you do it in an art show, however you give it away, whatever you want to do. You don't have to make it into a profitable thing, but I bet you could. Her stuff was, her pieces were stunning, absolutely stunning. And I don't know how we get off track sometimes, but just go
Yeah.
back and look at the things that actually give you that resonant value, your higher resonant value. And that's what, just like you do with your clients, I always encourage my clients to get kind of back to the basics, because
Yes.
the list doesn't change that much. You like to be active. You probably like to be active when you were younger, right?
Yeah. So much
Yeah,
energy. It was ridiculous. My mother had such a hard time getting me to go to sleep.
that's because it makes you feel good. I like
Yeah.
my body in motion too, just like you probably do. I do walking meditations,
Hmm.
sitting still. I don't care how many times I go to yoga class. I still want to move in the middle of it. I just prefer to be in motion. There's no judgment. Take the judgment off. So what? So I spin while everybody's sitting still.
I love
So
it.
what?
That's so funny. I'm the same way with Shavasana. I'm always like, that's the moment at which I'm like, I'm alive. And I'm like, I'm ready to do stuff. And I'm like, and I have to lay here. Because like at the
I know.
beginning of the yoga class, I would be happy to do corpse pose. That would not be an issue. Like totally down for it. By the end though, I'm like, I'm ready to move. I just had all this time. Let's do this.
I'm the same way. I'm so glad to hear this. I'm going to
Yeah,
give you the high
I've
five,
never met
virtual high
another,
five,
I've
because I'm
never
the
met
person
another
like you're like
person.
this, and all of a sudden my eyes go,
I
and then I start
know.
looking
It's like
around,
you
and
just,
like I feel energized. I feel
yes.
like I want to get up, and then yeah, and so I thought to myself, no judgment here. If it feels better for me, I like to do like a spin when I sit,
Sway.
just because, and it's a tiny little circle. And if I enjoy that and makes my body feel good, so be it.
Yeah,
Because
I'm not running around the room screaming, disturbing everyone else.
but I figured if there was a movie going on, they'd be like focused on the one person who's not doing it the
You're
way
like,
everybody else is. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I enjoy it. You know what? I'm glad to hear you're the same way though.
yeah, that's so funny. I've literally never met another person who gets like super activated in Shavasana. So
Oh,
funny.
totally.
But now I'm gonna have to take what you've just shared, like, and move my body in slow. Like, we'll
Oh
see.
yeah. And if you know, just so you know, the way, and this is also part of actually how to ascend, part of ascension. Which is something that I'm going to bring into my future practice. But you move from left to right, and that actually is how you actually ascend out in a way. So part of the reason that it's really hard for me to sit still, I think, is because I'm really sensitive. And well, I hate to say it, but the earth is spinning,
Mm-hmm.
and we're on an axis, and we're
And we're
spinning.
tilted.
And we're tilted. So to sit perfectly still doesn't make a
Totally.
whole lot of sense to me. And I think that's why it feels better to add a little counter spin into it, because with
Counter.
well,
Okay.
left to right.
Left to right. I know. I just started
If
doing
you
it.
go right to left, you're spinning into the ground. If you're going left to right, you're spinning out. So ascension is to spin above the ground and to actually eventually spin off of the earth in theory, but to spin into the ground, you can do too. So if you need to be more grounded,
Yeah, so I was just
then you,
thinking, I was like, if you're not actually feeling well, if you feel flighty, you should probably ground.
yeah, if you need to be grounded, you spin the other way.
Yeah.
But
Oh my God.
it's personal preference. It's kind of like, when people do different things to set a ball. Sometimes people like put their hand up and they'll do certain things, but then their ball goes straight in the way they want. And that's all about different aspects of finding your sense in the world. And for you and me, it's to be highly active and emotional all the time,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I love the little spin. Even when people are talking to me, sometimes I notice I spin. It's just a little bit, and it just feels like, okay, now I can settle. I settle better that way. That's all
I
right.
hope you know that I will be doing this from now on.
I know you'll be doing this in
Just
your
so you
interviews.
know.
You'll be like, all
Yep.
right.
Already doing it. Oh my gosh, Dianne, this has been such a fun interview. I would love to keep talking and also spinning like this. Anyway, I know you have a free gift for our audience.
I do.
Who's probably all also practicing this right. Could you tell them a little bit about what it is?
Yes, I have the 14 shortcuts for happy living. It's the fundamental principles in my book called The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. And you can find it all on my website, which is Dianne, Diann, two N's, E, at Dianne.net. And that's where we'll have it available to you. And we have a special link that we're putting together for Kate, for the show with Kate. And so we'll have all that for you too. And so just go ahead, sign up, and the free link will be there for you. And it's practice the 14 shortcuts, because those are the 14 steps that I took to make changes in every aspect of life, and it makes it easy.
Oh gosh, Dianne, that's such a fantastic gift. Y'all, to access the gift, just scroll below, click the button, it'll take you straight to Dianne's gift. For sure. I hope you guys had as much fun. We're just going to do this again. As much fun as I did on this interview. Dianne, you were just such a pure pleasure and joy to talk to. I loved all your strategies, like really looking at how do we overcome resistance, procrastination. I love how you talked about externalizing things, taking responsibility for things, allowing yourself to feel, but then to move forward. And that I loved your trick for like, put the timer on. Put the timer on, go for it and do it and like see what happens. And then like do more of what you love. I hope everyone leaves this interview today walking away with one thing that they really love that they're going to do today. Because it's just, I mean, like Dianne's right. It helps you feel good. It's just amazing. So thank you everyone for joining today. Dianne, thank you so much for being here. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. Bye y'all.